Why successful people always seem cold and distant fears a pattern you've probably noticed, but never fully understood. The most successful people you encounter, the CEOs, the entrepreneurs, the high achievers, often seem emotionally distant, almost cold in their interactions. They're polite but not warm, professional but not personal, respectful but not relatable. Many people assume this is arrogance or lack of empathy. They're completely wrong today. We're going to decode why success and emotional distance often go hand in hand. What successful people understand about human nature that others don't, and how this apparent coldness is actually a sophisticated form of psychological protection that enables their continued success. The truth is, what looks like coldness is often wisdom earned through experience. Successful people have learned lessons about human nature that most people never face, and they've adapted their behavior accordingly. The psychology of success and distance changes how people treat you, and successful individuals learn to protect themselves from these changes. When you achieve something significant, you discover that many people who were indifferent to you suddenly become very interested. This interest is rarely about you as a person. It's about what you can provide. Successful people develop emotional distance because they've learned to distinguish between people who value them for who they are versus those who value them for what they have. This creates a natural filtering system that protects their energy and prevents exploitation. The burden of being the solution once you become successful. Everyone assumes you have answers to their problems. People approach you not as equals seeking friendship, but as supplicants seeking solutions. Your conversations become one-sided consultations rather than mutual exchanges. This dynamic forces successful people to create boundaries. If they remained emotionally open and available to everyone, they would spend all their time solving other people's problems and have no energy left for their own goals. The reality of envy and resentment triggers envy in others, often unconsciously. People may claim to be happy for your achievements, but their behavior reveals different emotions. They might make subtle negative comments, downplay your accomplishments, or attribute your success to luck rather than effort. Successful people learn to recognize these patterns and protect themselves by maintaining emotional distance. It's not that they don't care about others. It's that they've learned not everyone genuinely cares about them. Energy management as a strategic choice. High achievers understand that emotional energy is a finite resource. Every interaction that involves managing someone else's emotions, providing reassurance, or dealing with drama is energy that could be invested in productive activities. This isn't selfishness, it's strategic resource allocation. Just as they're careful with their time and money, successful people are careful with their emotional investment. The liability of emotional attachment to emotional connections can become vulnerabilities in competitive environments. Caring too much about what others think can cloud judgment. Being too emotionally invested in relationships can create conflicts of interest or make difficult business decisions impossible. Successful people often maintain emotional distance as a form of psychological armor that allows them to make objective decisions without being paralyzed by personal feelings. The learning from betrayal. Most successful people have experienced significant betrayals. business partners who stole ideas, friends who became competitors, family members who demanded money, or mentors who took credit for their work. These experiences teach harsh lessons about trust and human nature. The emotional distance isn't coldness. It's scar tissue from being burned by people they once trusted completely. The misunderstanding of boundaries swapped. Others interpret as coldness is often just healthy boundaries. Successful people have learned to say no to requests that don't serve their goals, to limit personal information they share, and to keep professional relationships professional. These boundaries are necessary for maintaining focus and protecting against manipulation, but they're often perceived as unfriendly or arrogant by people who don't understand their purpose. The reality of transactional relationships reveals how many relationships are actually transactional rather than genuine. People who never called before suddenly reach out when they need something. Social invitations increase when your status rises. Dating becomes complicated when potential partners might be attracted to your success rather than your character. This reality forces successful people to become more guarded in their relationships, which appears cold but is actually just realistic assessment of human motivation. The pressure of constant performance. People often feel pressure to maintain their image and performance consistently. They can't afford to show vulnerability, uncertainty, or weakness because others expect them to be constantly competent and confident. This performance pressure creates emotional distance because authentic emotions, doubt, fear, sadness, might undermine the confidence that others rely on and that their success depends on. The isolation of leadership positions naturally create distance. You can't be both the decision-maker and everyone's best friend. Making tough choices sometimes means disappointing people, and maintaining authority requires a certain level of emotional separation. This isolation isn't chosen. It's an inevitable consequence of responsibility and decision-making. Power. Practical applications of strategic distance. Successful people use several techniques to maintain productive distance while remaining respectful and professional. They compartmentalize relationships, keeping business associates, personal friends, and family in separate categories with different levels of emotional investment. They practice selective sharing, revealing personal information strategically rather than indiscriminately. They maintain consistent boundaries regardless of social pressure or emotional manipulation attempts. They focus conversations on shared interests or mutual goals rather than personal problems or drama. The benefits of emotional distance. This approach provides several advantages that contribute to continued success. It preserves mental energy for important decisions and creative work. It prevents manipulation and exploitation by those with ulterior motives. It maintains objectivity in business relationships and negotiations. It protects against emotional volatility that could affect performance. When distance becomes problematic, excessive emotional distance can become counterproductive. It can prevent the formation of genuine relationships that provide emotional support and personal fulfillment. It can create a reputation for being uncaring or arrogant, which can harm long-term success. It can lead to loneliness and isolation that affects mental health and overall well-being. The key is finding the right balance between protection and connection. Understanding versus judging B for judging successful people as cold or distant. Consider what they might have experienced to develop these protective behaviors. They may have learned through difficult lessons that not everyone has good intentions, that emotional openness can be exploited, and that boundaries are necessary for survival in competitive environments. This doesn't excuse genuinely harmful behavior, but it provides context for understanding why success and emotional distance often correlate. Developing appropriate distance if you're building success in your own life. Consider developing some strategic emotional distance. This doesn't mean becoming cold or uncaring, but rather becoming more selective about where you invest your emotional energy. Learn to distinguish between people who genuinely care about you and those who are primarily interested in what you can provide. Develop boundaries that protect your time and energy for your most important goals and relationships. Practice maintaining professionalism without being personal in business contexts. The paradox of success often creates the very isolation it was meant to overcome. The achievement that was supposed to bring recognition and connection sometimes creates distance and suspicion instead. Understanding this paradox helps explain why many successful people seem emotionally distant. It's not that success made them cold. It's that success revealed the need for emotional protection that they hadn't previously recognized. The path forward. Goal isn't to become emotionally distant as a strategy for success. Rather, it's to understand that some level of emotional boundaries and strategic relationship management may become necessary as you achieve more. The most psychologically healthy, successful people learn to maintain this distance professionally while cultivating genuine, deep relationships in their personal lives with people who knew them before success and who value them for reasons beyond their achievements. Success doesn't have to make you cold, but it will teach you to be more selective about where you invest your warmth. Understanding this dynamic helps you navigate your own success journey with greater awareness and intention.